Welcome into the TDN Fantasy Podcast, a new look. You guys are going to be able to see the podcast on video, which is awesome. So you guys can check that out. We'll be putting it out on the TDN Fantasy Twitter account and the TDN, the Draft Network's Twitter account. So you guys will be able to see it. I was in a meeting and I had to push back our podcast. And while this meeting is going on, I get an alert. And the alert is about Rob Gronkowski and a potential him discussing something with the Patriots, and Jake has his hands up in the air, and then very quickly it's a done deal, right? We got Schefter reports, we got everything going on. It happened pretty quickly here. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have acquired Rob Gronkowski and a 7th round pick in a trade with the Patriots for a 4th round pick, right? That is the latest. Adam Schefter was the first guy to report it. Jay Glazer had some of it, right? It's kind of different people having it, but Schefter was first there. And this obviously all in light of the Tom Brady news. Obviously not a hard connection to make here. So let's start off with the immediate impact of Gronk, and then we can talk about OJ Howard and what this means for him, because that's obviously the secondary question here. So Jake, I'll make you wait, and I'm going to go to Jamie first. So Jamie, you react and tell us your thoughts on Gronkowski and what he can mean for this team.
So I don't think this is as surprising of a move as Twitter is acting like. I think we all said, not only earlier in this offseason, but I think we said last year on the show too. I mean, there were a lot of talks about, was Gronk going to come out of retirement in like week 10 and just, skip all the early season stuff, get his body healthy. I'm not surprised that he has the itch to play football. Again, he's still a pretty young man. And once those injuries start to go away for a little bit, you kind of forget about them and they're not a part of your everyday, every time you get up and move, you're feeling pain. When that dissipates a little bit, that competitive fire didn't go away. So that's when that kind of scale starts to tip back into the other direction here. Tampa Bay is also a great place to live. There are a lot of financial benefits to being in Florida, and just the tax situation, the cost of living. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into it. He was just there to win the WWE 24/7 title at WrestleMania that was supposed to be in the Bucs Stadium with a former football player that wrestles there. So this is not a surprise at all. I think it's a tremendous help to Tampa Bay. You talk about adding in another leader, another player that has won, another player with championships, plural, to a locker room that is ascending toward that goal. Somebody that Tom Brady can trust, can lean on, can help instill parts that he wants to instill. And the reality is they need more production out of that position than they got last year. And whether it's the combination of Gronk and Cameron Brate together, if they move OJ Howard, or they're all three for a while, or whatever combination, they will assuredly get more production out of that position when needed, and have a tremendous red zone threat and a red zone mismatch to use. I'll be incredibly interested to see how they use him, maybe even in the slot inside the 10, which would be really fun to see. It's going to be a huge impact for fantasy purposes. Not taking him among the top 5 tight ends. There's still injury risk there. There's only so many mouths you can possibly feed. And if you believe that you should be taking Mike Evans and Chris Godwin in the first round, and maybe they bring in a Clyde Edwards-Helaire on day 2 of the draft, you have 2 tight ends there. There's only so many balls to go around, but it's still going to be a huge addition on the field for Tampa Bay. And I can't think of a negative reason. I can't think of a negative aspect to this trade. And for New England, look, you weren't going to get Gronk anyway. He wasn't going to come back to play for Jared Stidham. He might have just stayed retired. You got a 4th round pick that you didn't have going in, more draft capital to keep rebuilding this team. It's a win-win.
What else am I going to say about that? This entire offseason is just like, I don't.
Yeah, I was going to say collectively, can you just more so, let's take the analyst hat off for a second. Can you just have a moment to yourself to go, holy crap, Rob Gronkowski and Tom Brady both playing for Bruce, for your dad in Tampa. I mean, if you told us this 2 years ago, even a year ago, I would have been like, I'll bet my life there is no chance that this happens. Like it has all materialized. And as Jamie so, eloquently said, there's a lot of reasons to like this. But just from a pure fandom standpoint, other than for New England, it's pretty freaking cool.
if I had something other than this can, I'd spit the hell out of it in honor of Gronk right now. I mean, it's just, if you'd have told me my dad was coaching again 2 years ago, it would be enough to be excited to now have Tom Brady, that entire defense back, Evans, Godwin, Jones, and now you're adding Gronk to the mix. I mean, just the fun excitement of this is going to be off the charts. I mean, one thing I want to add to the player was I don't think he was necessarily done physically. He was tired of being beat up. There's a lot of accounts of tired of that mental grind of New England and to have a little more fun. And he was only going to do it with Brady. And I think the one thing we have to talk about with Gronk is how good of an inline blocker he is. He's going to help in the run game tremendously. And I don't know how you defend this team now. Can you play zone? Probably not. If you're playing man, that means Gronk's matched up with a tight end or a tight end against a linebacker or a safety. Mm-hmm. And now you got Evans and Godwin matched up, and you're talking about Edwards-Helaire or whoever the back ends up being. I don't know how you defend this team with the defense all back. I mean, it's just almost too good to be true. I'm officially changing my offseason grade from an A to an A++. And they're not done yet. I told you they weren't done yet, but I didn't think it was going to be this.
And look, they could still add some draft capital if they move on from OJ Howard. They're going to get more than what they gave up for Gronk for Howard. I don't think it's going to be a first round pick, but I do think it's going to be at least a day 2 pick, or they can hold on and wait and maybe get capital the following year. I mean, it's interesting to see where they go from here. But Jake's point is solid. It's how do you defend this team when everybody's healthy? Like I don't see it. I don't see how you can defend all of them. You've got a Hall of Fame tight end now. You've got 2 Pro Bowl wide receivers. You've got a Hall of Fame quarterback. Like, where do you divert your attention to? If everybody's on the field at the same time, there's mismatches everywhere.
I can't tell if it makes it more paramount or a little less risky, like to have to move up to get a right tackle now. Like if you can stay at 14, still get one, and not have to give anything up, and maybe you do trade OJ Howard and get a second or a third, man, this draft is looking phenomenal with what you already have. If you could still add that tackle at 14, but I don't know that you have to get crazy. The other part of that is, okay, then you have to keep Gronk around to block or Cameron Brate. You got to go some 2 tight end stuff. I can't really decide which way I want to go there, but if they can get a right tackle and a running back in this draft, pass catching running back in this draft, good luck.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to me. And I think a lot of that's going to depend on what the Giants do at 4. Because if they stay there and they take a tackle, then I think the risk of one of those top 4 guys not falling to Tampa gets really high at that point. And I don't think you want to be boxed into Josh Jones there at that pick. I mean, even if it's a player you like, I think you don't want to spend the 14th overall pick on that. I think you want to be more in the 20s. The question is, can they move up? Can they get a package together to possibly move up a few picks without giving up that second round pick that might be used on that running back? Now you've got multiple picks in the 4th round. Is that going to be enough to move around? Do you have to start moving capital for the future years? Are you able to take a team like, you're able to look at a team like Arizona or a team like Jacksonville and be able to, attach your some mid-round picks and maybe OJ Howard together to move up for some maybe tight end needy teams. I don't know. I mean, that could be. But my point is, I don't know that I feel like I can't tell if I'm saying, okay, now you have to get a right tackle. Yeah. Because that's really the only thing that's like cluster. But Gronk helps so much. It's like I don't know. I can't decide either one. But if they could pull it off and get a right tackle, a pass catching running back.
I think they're in a really good spot.
It's just health at that point, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just you have to stay healthy, and you can make a run. I mean,
I think you're
stretch those hamstrings.
Yeah,
my God, stretch those hamstrings.
I think they're in a really good spot here, right, guys? Because now there can be more opportunities potentially for them to move on here from OJ Howard. And they might decide not to. But as Jamie put, there's a couple scenarios here where they can package together a couple of different things and make sure they get the right tackle that they want. And then it goes from an A++ to a grading score that I don't have, right? Like it becomes, you look at the team and you go, yeah, okay, like good luck, right? I mean, I think that's where you now have a chip that you can move, and probably, Jamie, I agree with you, get a day 2 pick potentially for, and package something together and move up if you have to, right? And maybe they don't have to, and maybe they keep OJ. But I think there's obviously the number one trend on Twitter right now is OJ Howard, right? Because there's a lot of discussion about what's going to happen with OJ and the name value as we talk about substance over swag. It's more of swag versus substance with him because he hasn't really materialized as much as he's got the big body. You're really excited about him.
The college stuff we talked about, though. OJ Howard from Alabama, but the Greek god of a human being that is the
physical specimen.
Howard, everybody's potential could be, and it's there. I mean, the Bucs like the potential. They just didn't see enough of it consistency last year. He finished well. But yeah, I mean, look, they can move on from OJ Howard and get something good back. You're talking about an unprecedented offseason. I can't remember anybody ever having an offseason like this. I mean, You're talking about Jason Light and the Glazers went all in on no risk it, no biscuit last year with BA. And this is what you get. Those guys aren't coming without him being the head coach and that offense.
No chance.
And Ryan Clark said it very well this morning. He lets stars be stars. He wants the input from his players. He wants that kind of collaborative environment that Brady talked about before and after signing. And they're all in. This is no risk it, no biscuit. This is we're coming to take your head off every Sunday, and we got a couple years to make a run and see if we can win another ring. I mean, and if you're a fan base, what the hell else could you ask for? Yeah. I mean, the beginning of this, I saw a bunch of people, like Bucs fans, what about our future? Your past is shit. Throw a couple Super Bowls into your future. Like, Tom Brady has as many Super Bowl rings as you have playoff wins. I've said this a bunch of times. Like, this is, the other thing about Gronk I want to point out, too, is Tom Brady went to 9 Super Bowls. He only won 6, and those were the ones with Gronk. He never won one without Gronk on the field. And I don't think you can overstate that importance of, like, when it comes down to nothing else and nobody's open, Gronk. And when the years that they had, you couldn't stop him. Like, I don't know what else you could from a face organizationally than to go all in. And they went all in. I mean, the chips are in the middle of the table. They got to stay healthy and make a run. But I don't know how else you could build this any better.
Listen, this is exactly what you get with Bruce, right? It's exactly it's no risk it, no biscuit. You're going to put all the chips into the table. But if you're a Bucs fan, there isn't even a level of excitement that I can describe that you should be having right now, right? Because you're talking about unprecedented. Yeah, just the ability that Tom Brady was ever going to leave is insane. Just that in and of itself. And now getting Gronkowski, there's a lot of excitement, obviously. So for Bucs fans, they should be very excited. They should be pumped up. This is an awesome thing for them. And mostly just for NFL fans, aside from Patriots fans, who, no offense, don't really care about your feelings because you have a lot of Super Bowl victories and most of us don't.
I'll OJ take Howard. 1 year 6. I'll be fine. New England fans are just fine.
Yeah, they are just fine. I want to talk about OJ Howard just quickly before we move on to the AFC win totals. Just Jamie, level with me. What is the ideal package here for OJ potentially? Is it the Jacksonville package that you kind of threw out there? Because I think that has it's pretty intriguing to me, right? Or are there other ones that you're interested in?
I think as you're kind of fantasy booking this potential trade here, I think you're talking about immediate impact. There is still the clear need, I think, for that right tackle spot we talked about. And there's a chance that they're just going to be a couple picks too far back to get the player that one of the top 4 players they might be interested in. So yes, if Jacksonville's willing to play ball and getting ahead of Cleveland and the Jets guarantees you at worst, most likely to get the 3rd offensive tackle on your board, if not the 2nd offensive tackle on your board. I think that would be an ideal scenario because then at that point, you're really not trading a lot of capital you've already had. So if let's say they want that and they could take the 4th round pick from New England or something on that fashion on top of OJ Howard in 14, really you just traded OJ Howard and got Gronk and that pick. So, if you talk about it in the end, that's a massive win from yesterday. If we would have talked about that scenario, so all you have to do to move up and get that tackle is move on from OJ Howard. Oh, and by the way, you're going to get that tackle and you're going to get Rob Gronkowski. for essentially, I guess at that point, it would be a 7th round pick and, move it and that. So you would absolutely take that. Even if it takes another day 3 pick or something like of that nature. But you're going to have a team in that scenario that views OJ Howard as a potential future asset for them and fits what they want to do. And I think Jacksonville has that need. They can still pick up OJ Howard's 5th-year option to get him for 2 years at a very reasonable rate before they have to make probably a year and a half where they have to make a final decision on are they going to sign him long-term or not. That to me would make a lot of sense. And you're not asking Jacksonville to do a ton there. They can go back and they could probably still get CJ Henderson if that's the guy that they like at 14 or Christian Fulton. They might even be able to get Kinlaw there, although I think that the Niners might be very tempted to take him there. But if the Niners take him there, then all of a sudden a guy like CeeDee Lamb or Henry Ruggs becomes available to you at 14 if you're Jacksonville. So I think that that's a team to me that makes a lot of sense. Arizona would as well, but I think I've been on record as saying I think they should stay where they are and take a tackle. So I don't think they want to find themselves in a situation where they're trading away from a tackle spot where, again, you're trading with 14 because Tampa thinks they might not get the tackle they want there. I don't see Arizona making that same risk. So Jacksonville makes a ton of sense to me, and I think it would make a lot of sense from Tampa's standpoint of not giving up too much capital elsewhere and now trading from a position of major strength with 3 major tight ends on the roster.
Jake, OJ Howard, and you're just sitting over there. Jake's just like this. Jake's just like, yep, thumbs up, going, yeah, I agree. He's just very excited.
I will take that and run to the bank right now. If you told me that yesterday, Jamie scenario, yes, I'm in. Deal.
Okay.
Done. Look, there's plenty of teams, to Jamie's point, that would love to have OJ on this deal for 2 years. If you pick up the 5th-year option, he's like 2.6 or something on the cap this year. It's nothing for what that player potential is in a different system that just maybe a little, I don't know, more tight end friendly. Everybody wants to talk about how this is not a tight end friendly thing, but all of a sudden Gronk is the greatest thing ever. I don't get that. But a lot of teams would want that player for that price for 2 years with the ability to re-sign and keep him. We'll see. Not a lot of people are in front of them that they might move up for, though.
Maybe it's just a scenario where he needs a change of scenery, right? That's a lot of times that happens with players. So maybe that's what it is.
He's young. OJ's a good kid, man. I wish him nothing but the best. You don't just Jameis. I wish nothing but the best for Jameis. Is a good kid I've known a long time, but you can't turn down the chance for Tom Brady to stay with Jameis. You can't turn down the chance for Gronk with Tom Brady for OJ. Like this, it makes a lot of sense. But yeah, in any of the scenarios that allow them to get a right tackle and not give up a ton to do it, it's the perfect offseason. It really is unprecedented offseason that we've never really seen. Yeah,
and I think like the Jags deal makes a lot of sense in theory because we talk about there's always got to be the other side of it. It's very easy to make a deal for one side, but I think the Jags would be perfectly okay coming out of the first day of the draft with OJ Howard, CeeDee Lamb, and like a Christian Fulton, for example, which is very easily doable in that scenario. And that's starting to build an offense around. Look, it's Minshew right now. I don't think Minshew is the long-term answer. I don't think they're going to find that answer this year. But but maybe they do. Maybe they like Jordan Love and they like him at 20. And now you're getting Howard, Lamb, and Love added to this offense right away. So, I mean, that's one of those ones where I think it makes some sense for everybody involved. And as Jake pointed out with the cost of OJ Howard, it also doesn't put a lot of pressure on Tampa to move him right away. I mean, they could even pick up his 5th-year option if they wanted to. At that price and work on moving him throughout the year. So, I mean, I think a deal will get done sooner rather than later, just a hunch, but they're also not in a position where he's not a cap problem for the team. Like it's not going to be an issue. If they don't get an offer,
his value is the highest right now in this draft with this lower tight end class in a place like that. So you package 14 to go up.
Yeah.
Whatever it ends up being, OJ, I think will be part of that deal, but I think his value is the highest this week until we get to the draft. Maybe even through Friday.
I think Jaguars fans would be really excited about the scenario that Jamie just played out because that's a hell of a draft class. And then, oh, by the way, if they turn around and they end up landing themselves a top quarterback next year, oh man, all of a sudden that becomes very exciting.
And Fournette, I mean, they could end up with 14 picks. OJ Howard,
it's time to
that would be spectacular. Jamie, I like that's a good one. I'm down with that.
Yeah, Jamie's a good GM. I think we've landed on the fact that Jamie is prepared and really dialed into the front office 33 slogan over at the Draft Network.
Absolutely.
So it's very appreciative of that good breakdown that he had there. Guys, if you didn't listen to our NFC win totals yesterday, you should go back and listen to the podcast. We are on MyBookie.ag's official lines, and you can get in on this action right now. We're running a special with them, so if you go and you put in the draft network, if you bet $2,000, you're going to get $1,000 extra play, right? So they're matching 50% of that. So it's good opportunity for you to have some fun heading into the NFL draft, especially since I know it's been a slow grind through this no sports time, right? And I know people are excited about this.
And I would say do it quickly if you want to get, because I don't know when some of these other sports things are coming back, when these other leagues are going to play. There's a lot of draft props right now. We're going to do our show tomorrow, highlighting a bunch of them. There are a lot of really fun, interesting draft props right now. And you can kind of get in on the action before a lot of money is going to come in over the next couple of days, and the lines are going to move a lot. They've already moved a lot already. So, yeah. I mean, these are a lot of fun. It gets another element to draft night, whether it's player versus player, whether it's, over under on draft position, third, fourth quarterback off the board, first player at this position off the board. It adds a lot more intrigue to draft night. And again, it might be a while before you can bet on any American sports again. So I would suggest you take advantage of this. And again, the 50% bonus, as Paige said, it's free money to bet with.
Yeah. We're going to go through all the props. And right now we're going through the AFC win totals, pre the draft. We're going to look at them after the draft, see if they move a ton. Don't expect them to move a whole lot, but there are a couple of teams that stand to make a move. I don't know, like a Cincinnati that we're going to talk about that might end up getting the quarterback in the future. So let's start off with the first team here in the AFC, a team that was spectacular in the regular season and disappointed in the postseason, and that is the Baltimore Ravens. Their win total is high, 11.5. Going into this year. Jamie's sitting on here. He's taking a deep breath because we don't like those win totals, man. When they're that high, that's a big number. Are you okay with that number for the Baltimore Ravens?
It's where it should be for the market. As I said on our show yesterday, I'm never going to be somebody that takes the over on 11 plus win totals. I just think there are more things that can go wrong than can go right. My initial look through pre-draft, I had them right around 12 wins again, assuming health. This is kind of what we're assuming now if they're not already hurt. But this is a tough one for me because I think that the rest of the division is getting better, and I think it's more likely they hit the under even if I predict them to go over. Cleveland should be better this year. I can't possibly imagine they're going to be worse. They're going to add a left tackle. That's a big need for them. They added a major playmaking tight end in Austin Hooper. They're going to have Myles Garrett back right away. He's not going to miss any time this season like we thought maybe toward the end of the year. Pittsburgh with Ben Roethlisberger and Juju Smith-Schuster and James Conner coming back healthy, maybe adding another running back in round 2 are going to be better this year significantly. The Bengals are going to be more competitive. Joe Burrow in that offense is going to be exciting to watch, assuming that Joe Mixon does play by week 1. I think that's our first holdout watch of the offseason is whether or not Joe Mixon shows up. But if he shows up, AJ Green's coming back. You're going to have a new quarterback there, second year in Zach Taylor's system. So the rest of the division around them got better, which is going to make things harder for them. They don't have Marshall Yanda. They're not going to have their center for at least part of the season in Matt Skura. So those are all negatives to me. I would actually probably, if I redid this now with all that being said, I'd probably lean toward the under here. I still think they can win the division, and they're going to be my pick at the moment, but it's going to be a much tougher path than it was for them last season. Under.
All of what you just said makes too much sense. First of all, Pittsburgh is probably better with Ben on the field. Their defense loaded. Cleveland is loaded. We talked about it last year. There's a potential trade right now for Trent Williams to go with Jack Conklin on that line, and now they take that 10th pick and go somewhere else.
Great.
Dude, you got maybe the best. You went from the worst line in the league to one of the best lines in the league, and you said Cincinnati's going to be better. I don't think they win the division. I've got them at 10. I think they get in the playoffs, but they put everything on the table last year for us to see. They got to get that creative again and hope Lamar Jackson can play. Here's the other thing. He's now the cover boy of Madden 21. That's a jinx. I don't care who it is. Nobody's ever broke the jinx. I'm taking the
Mahomes.
under, and I like it.
Mahomes kind of did, I think.
Mahomes broke the jinx. He was the one. So we'll see if there's now a new jinx continuation, but I don't think so. And Mixon better show his ass up to camp. You can't hold out, dude. It wasn't that freaking long ago. We're watching you punch a chick in the face. You're lucky they took you in the first place. Get your ass to camp. When your contract's up, they'll pay you. In the meantime, shut the hell up and show up, because that is absolute BS for a guy like that to say I'm going to hold out for money. You're lucky to be out of jail and be on a damn NFL team.
Thank you. That's all I'm going to say is thank you, Jake, because man, oh man, some perspective for that young man. The fact that he is even allowed and afforded the opportunity and the privilege to play in the NFL, he should be so damn thankful after what happened to him in college. And I understand second chances and hope you learn from something, but a lot of people don't get second chances with stuff like that. And he's really, really lucky. So get your ass to camp. I'm just second what Jake said. And I think everything you guys just said about Baltimore, they're going to be a really interesting team, because I could talk myself into the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Cleveland Browns, depending on what happens, being a team that I like to win this division. But I think Baltimore, obviously, right now is the favorite.
Look, I like them. I like them.
Yeah, of course, we all do.
All three of these teams could win 12 games.
Absolutely.
So to say that one of them are in the same division makes it. I'm not touching that for booking MyBookie and betting that one. One other thing I want to talk about before we move forward. We talked about yesterday when we were doing this. Is there anything that could happen this week that would change your win total opinion? Does Rob Gronkowski change your win total? You were already on the over yesterday, Jamie. But is there another example? Let's think about that as we do these teams.
Trent Williams,
Cleveland, when we get there, Trent Williams is. That makes me want to take the over.
Yeah, because it's not just Trent Williams. It's Trent Williams, and then you're adding Kinlaw, you're adding C.J. Henderson, you're adding a huge piece, at that spot, because then you don't have to take Thomas at 10. Look, if you're going to move on from Odell Beckham the next 2 years, do you look at one of those receivers? Do you say I'm going to take Judy or CeeDee Lamb and say, you know what, I'll figure out what I do with Odell Beckham in the next 2 years? I mean, it opens up a lot of possibilities, because they're not moving 10 for Trent Williams. The Washington does not have enough leverage to get that sort of capital back for Williams, even if he'd be worth it in a vacuum.
No, I think
that second round though.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that second rounder probably. Listen, that probably moves the needle enough, Jake, because then you look at the Cleveland Browns, and we'll get to them. They're right up here on their win total. That could make a huge difference, especially because we talked about it last year ad nauseum, how much of an issue the offensive line was for Baker Mayfield and the Cleveland Browns. All right, the next team on our list, those Buffalo Bills. 8.5 wins is their total right now on MyBookie.ag. Jake, I'll go to you first here. Buffalo, your thoughts? We liked them last year. They went to the postseason, but a lot of question marks surrounding Josh Allen and whether or not he can make progression and continue to do that and take this team to the next level. I kind of feel like 9 wins is about right for them, but maybe you're feeling differently. What are your thoughts here?
I had him 10-6 on winning the division, taking the over. Josh Allen made good strides from year 1 to year 2. He's going to have more weapons now. He has more weapons already before this draft. I think he continues the strides. I love the fact that big arm can play in that brutally windy place, and the athleticism, him being able to run around and make things happen. That's a young team that's really gelled together in the locker room, that are playing really hard. I love Sean McDermott. I love everything they got going on there. That defense is going to overperform by the style that they play. And that division is theirs, in my opinion, for the taking. I think the Jets are right there. New England doesn't have a quarterback. For everybody to say it's still New England's to win, get the last 20 years, but this is not the same thing. I mean, to me, they're the class of the division right now, and I feel pretty good about taking the over on that one.
Yeah, I have them as a 9-7 division winner. I think their division is not going to be as tough as it's been, but it's going to be tough because Miami and New York are going to come to play. And I think this actually, I think as we said back at our AFC East show, this is not going to be as compelling of a division like the NFC West or the AFC West is going to be, but it's going to be highly competitive, just at a level right underneath there. I like a lot. Again, I think they probably gave up too much for Diggs, but in terms of just on field, he's going to be an asset for them. I expect Josh Allen to continue to progress forward, but I don't see this as a 12-ish win team. I don't think they're not in that. To me, they're not in that elite upper first class of the AFC for me, but they're still, I think, the best team in the division. I think they're going to win the division. I think it's way more likely they win 10 games than 8. So I think the over here, even though it's pretty heavily juiced on the over, that would be the way to go.
Yeah, Buffalo Bills coming off a good season, and it's going to be an interesting division because it's going to be the first time in a long time where it feels like there is an opportunity for another team to win this division, which seems like it's the first time in 20 years we've been able to say that. So it's there's going to be a lot of interest and intrigue in this division, specifically just because of the fact that Tom Brady's not there. All right, the Cincinnati Bengals. This is one I'm circling and paying attention to see what the post-draft number looks like and if it changes, right? 5.5 right now, their win total. This is a roster that's in need of a lot, right? It's not just Joe Burrow, it's more weapons, it's better defense. They have a lot of holes here in a division that we just talked about being 3 teams that could potentially win 12 games. Jake, I'll go to you first. Your thoughts on Cincinnati and that win total as of right now?
I'll still take the under because the defense is bad, the division's brutal, and they're going to be playing a quarterback. But they don't need more weapons. If you throw out Tyler Boyd, A.J. Green, John Ross Leonard to play in the slot with Mixon showing his ass up to camp, I don't think you could ask for much more than that if you're Joe Burrow and you're a rookie quarterback going into that situation. Now, their defense is going to struggle. They are by far the worst team in that division. With the other 3 we talked about could all be 10, 11, 12-game winners. So I'll still take the under, but they're going to be much better if that's the case, and they're going to be building towards something really nice. They could add enough of that draft. There's nothing that's going to make me want to take the over, but they could have a really good draft that they could build pieces for. You're looking at them being pretty damn good in a couple years.
Yeah, and I think that's a good number. I have them down for 5-11. I expect them to be competitive, but they're not ready to. They're not ready to be a team that's competing for 500. I expect them to be competitive in games. That offense can be exciting. There's a lot of fantasy value there, but I don't think they're going to be, especially in that division. They're clearly a distant fourth in that division with 3 teams that I think are going to be competing for winning records. So at some point, Cincinnati's just not going to be able to get enough wins to get over this total.
All right, the Cleveland Browns staying in that division, 8 wins right now in Vegas. Last year, I looked at their win total and I said, lock the under. It was a lock. It hit early on. It was one of the ones I looked at and I went, okay, this is the team that's going to disrupt. This kind of feels like this might be an opportunity to get in on the over because this is a team that has a lot of talent like we talked about and could bounce back really quickly. Jamie, where are you sitting with the Cleveland Browns right now?
I pushed on this one. I have them 8-8, and they're more talented than that for sure. But I still think they're the 3rd best team in the division. And again, it's a lot of this record is how can you compete in your division, and can you really get to double-digit wins if you're not winning at least 4 of your divisional games? It becomes very difficult. And I think they could go 4-2, but I think in that division. But I think that's the absolute peak. I think it's more likely they go 500 in that division than 500 elsewhere. They're just in this weird spot because I need to see it. I mean, we talked about last year. They didn't answer any questions. They just did everything we thought. They just did everything wrong. They did everything we thought worst case scenario could be. They did it. So they still have to answer those questions, and they shouldn't be worse. But until I see them be better, they're going to start the year without Jarvis Landry for a period of time. I like them, but I just think the problem is that I can't make a compelling argument right now when everybody's healthy that they're better than Baltimore or Pittsburgh, which is just going to limit their upside a bit. So if I had to lean one way, I would take the over, but this is a stay away for me.
I'll take the over. I mean, this meat and potatoes offseason that they've had has gotten better, and they went for substance over swag. But things that kept them down last year that made us feel like they would implode are the same things that makes me feel like they could get hot as shit, and you do not want to play them late. Because when you take these young guys and that fan base, if they can get rolling and they can protect Baker and Baker gets hot and that with his down the sidelines with that swag on, like this place could go, okay, the substance is there, they're winning games, but that swag take them another level of they're playing heads and better than they really are, and I would not want to play them if that's the case. And I just have a feeling all that stuff that happened last year, making the changes, firing the coaching staff, never be in check, Baker taking that step back and looking at himself a little bit, I would not want to play this team get hot. And the thing I could see that happen, them getting taken off with that.
Yeah, I think the thing with Baker is you don't want to let him get that confidence back right? Because last year was really tough for him. He took a lot of heat from the national media. He took a lot of heat from Colin Cowherd in general, right? The two of them battled it out plenty enough on social media, but he took his lumps last year. And if they start off well and he starts to feel himself, it's not going to be good for everybody because he starts to get confidence in himself. The rest of his teammates start feeling themselves. Then all of a sudden you go from, okay, you showed us the substance and now you're the swaggiest team, right? You got Jarvis and Odell Beckham Jr. and Baker and all these guys. And it's like, man, if it all clicks,
Chubb,
it's a big if.
Hunt.
Yeah,
Yep.
If it all clicks, it could be unbelievable. It's a big if.
Let's talk about that scenario too. If they get Trent Williams, I already like the over. I got him at 9-7, 10-6. If they get Trent Williams, I'm damn sure taking the over. I feel good about it.
Yeah.
I mean, Baker, if they have Conklin and Trent Williams, all he's got to do is get it out of his hand. They got freaking playmakers everywhere. And they added Austin Hooper. You got Kareem Hunt. You got Chubb if you want to run it. You got Landry. You got to be like this. You still got Njoku at this point. And that defense got better. They added the safeties in the back end. Alex Garrett, as you said, is not missing any time. I like taking the over on the Browns. I think they're going to be tough.
I like it too, and I like taking it now while it's at 8 because I think they could make some moves. The move you're saying, potentially adding a lot of draft capital, and everybody looks at that team and goes, "Ooh, I like it a little bit more now." So it might be a good opportunity to get in on it now.
Javon Kinlaw and Trent Williams. It's a 9.5.
Yeah, that's. Show us the substance, and I can assure you, Browns fans, I will be all in on the swag if you show me the substance. I will be all aboard the Brown train. I will be a part of the dog pound, and I will be all aboard back with my guy Baker. It's the Minnesota Vikings are the team that Jake's in and off of, right? Leading the train, back of the train. I will do that with the Browns this year if that's what happens because a lot of faith in the team, and I love the fan base. But man, you got to show us the substance first. We're gonna make T-shirts. I already decided, so we'll have them ready to go for next football season. Substance over swag. Denver Broncos 8, a team we liked collectively more than the public last year, right? We talked a lot about this. They made strides in the back half of the season. They've had a pretty good offseason as well. They've done some things. They can make some moves here. A lot of people talking about them going after one of these top-tier wide receivers, right, with their early draft pick. Jamie, your thoughts on Denver and whether or not this is a team that could go 9-7 and be above 500?
And that's where I have them. I have them being 9-7. Again, really tough division. Every team in that division is going to be highly competitive, but I think they can get to 9 wins. I'm excited to see what they add on draft day. Do they add, a Ruggs or a CeeDee Lamb, or are they able to trade up and maybe get one of those tackles to bolster the offensive line, and you come back with, maybe a Regier or a Pittman or Ayuk or somebody in round 2 to add, because they still need a complement to Cortland Sutton on the other side. They need to add weapons there. We'll see how Noah Fant plays in year 2. Started to pick things up a little bit toward the end of the season with Drew Lock, but I like a lot of things about this team. They're really solid. They're solid defensively. They showed flashes last year on offense. Drew Lock, again, he's going to be the key to how far this team could possibly go, but they're going to add weapons on the offensive side, whether it's on the line or at receiver, in the first 2 rounds of the draft. So I'm really excited for them this season. The only thing that's going to hold them back is a sophomore slump from Lock or the fact that it's going to be a really tough division. That, spoiler, I don't have any teams with a losing record in this division.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't either. It looked good. That's why I'm sitting on the fence. I'll right now I'll take the under, just because this division is brutal, and I think they're the worst team in it. Maybe not. They're probably still better than Raiders, but depending on how the Raiders draft goes, that's going to be 2 damn competitive games. I think they're significantly down from the Chiefs and the Chargers. I'd have to lean towards the under. Drew Lock played really well last year in his limited time, but he also put stuff on tape. Hamilton was trying to think of the other day that I like a lot.
Deshaun Hamilton.
I think he'll take a step forward. He had the drops last year. I think he needs to get his confidence back. But they have a piece there. And if they add another one and he does step up, then you got a really dynamic offense with the addition of Melvin Gordon. They bolstered the offensive line. I like what they did. They're going to play damn good defense. They get Chubb back off that ACL.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be tough. But that division is absolutely brutal. And they're non-conference. So they played the NFC South as well. Be tough. I have them right there at 7-9, 8-8. we'll see what they do in the draft. I don't know that it'll matter that much for me. I'd probably have to lean towards the under, but I wouldn't touch this one.
The laughing stock of the offseason has been the Houston Texans, right? We have had a lot of fun making fun of Bill O'Brien, and their win total in Vegas is 8. 8-8. Everybody in Vegas has them as of right now. Jake is, for the people that are going to watch this on camera, you are already seeing the thumbs down, the double thumbs down that Jake just gave this. For all the listeners on the podcast, I just gave you the visual that Jamie and I are experiencing. I'll just be for Jake, since you already told me the way you feel. 7-9, 6-10. Where are you leaning here with the Houston Texans?
I've got it more like 6-10. I think it could be 5-11. I mean, this division's better minus Jacksonville, but Tennessee and Indy are going to be really tough. And you just got worse. There's no way to cut it. He gave away a ton. They added some stuff here and there. I don't know that Brandon Cooks is going to play. I think you could probably blow on him from across the room and get a concussion. He's just had too many, man. These guys that have back-to-back concussions and miss time, and he's a little guy, scares the hell out of me. For the kid, you've made a ton of money, man. Be really careful with your future. That was for $18 million, whatever they're paying him. David Johnson, I don't know what you're going to get. I love the quarterback, but he misses a lot of open throws. He has magic, and he makes that Michael Jordan stuff happen, but that was with Nuke, who's not there. And the defense still sucks. So I don't know, man. I think 6-10 is much more likely.
And that's also when he didn't hate the head coach. And so we'll see how, especially if things start to go poorly early in the season, we will see how this feels like a team that could spiral out of control. I know we talked about that with slightly different situations, but how we talked about that with Cleveland, this could be Houston. I could see a scenario where this spirals completely out of control. And if Deshaun Watson gets hurt, this team is going to be picking in the top 3. I have them right now, again, assuming health, all that stuff, I have them right now at 7-9. And I think that's the under, but I don't really see much upside there. This defense still has as many problems as it's had the last few years. The offensive line still has problems. So all the things that have plagued Houston before are all there, and now they're just a less talented team overall.
Let me ask you this, Jamie. Week 8 next year, they're playing the Cincinnati Bengals on a neutral field.
They'll be again, I still probably take Houston because I have to see what Burrow looks like.
There's your answer right there. The fact that you even had to think about it.
But yeah, I mean, this defense is bad. I'm sorry. This defense has been bad for years. Nobody wants to have the weapons to keep up with Cincinnati if Burrow is playing at a decent level. No, and that's the thing.
It's going to be one of the worst teams in the league.
They're going to give up 30 points a game, and they can't keep up anymore.
That's the point.
And I don't necessarily think the in-game coaching from Bill O'Brien has been that spot on the last couple of years. So I like
Bill the coach. Bill the GM sucks.
Yeah, but this goes back to what we talked about. Now there's no line of delineation. Deshaun Watson is getting plays from the guy that just traded his favorite receiver, instead of being like, there's no us against the world, no us against the front office, none of that internal stuff we saw like in the Jordan documentary of me versus the GM. No, because the GM's your coach.
Yeah,
the GM's the one telling you now you're only playing 7 minutes a game. It's a different scenario. And now to me there's a better chance this team wins 5 or 6 games than this team has a winning record. And so I would take the under here.
Totally agree. This team is not going to be very good. I don't see it. I like Deshaun Watson a lot, but he's not Patrick Mahomes, and he doesn't make that much. It's not the difference make there is not there, and the coaching staff's not there, and the weapons aren't there. And this defense has gotten worse and worse year after year, and you're living off of what was 4 or 5 years ago, a lot in name value, and not what is right now. The Indianapolis Colts are 9. Their win total is 9 right now on MyBookie.ag. I looked at that one and I was like,
ooh, that went up. It went up. It was 8 when I looked 2 days ago. Interesting.
Oh, all right. Indianapolis Colts, 9 wins. So it went up. Obviously, a lot of offseason changes. Do you have faith in Phillip Rivers, Jamie, that this team can be a above 500 team?
I do. I think they're a 10-win team. They're my pick to win the division right now. I think this is, again, they just need to get better quarterback play than they got for the back half of the year from Jacoby Brissett. This offensive line is elite and is going to give Phillip Rivers ample opportunity. As we talked about, the upgrading offensive line is almost unprecedented. He's going from one of the 3 worst to arguably the best in football. That is going to be a tremendous boost for him. T.Y. Hilton's going to be healthy. I think they're adding a wide receiver on day 2 of this draft to add to next to Paris Campbell and T.Y. Hilton. You have Jack Doyle, who's again a solid option there for them. This defense started to play pretty well at times. You're going to have Marlon Mack for the full season. So just this team getting healthy, getting an upgrade at the quarterback position is huge. It's a well-coached team. They do a little bit of everything well. They don't maybe blow you away in any category except offensive line play, but they do everything really well at every level of the field on both sides of the ball. I just think they're a really solid team. They can get to 10-6 and win this division. And I like the over. I liked it more at 8 because you got a little bit more wiggle room, but I still like the over now. If
it was at 8, I'd like it to like Cleveland, right? But I still take the over. I agree with you. I think they're going to win the division. They're basically the German Shepherd of the NFL. Do you know anything about dogs? They say the German Shepherd's not anything, but it's second best at everything, which makes it probably the most well-rounded dog out there, right? This team is very well-rounded. For 3 years, I've talked about this front seven being a mother to run on. If Malik Hooker and that secondary, Rock Ya-Sin, those young guys can come on and stay healthy next year, the defense is going to be that much better. Phillip Rivers is a giant upgrade with that offensive line. If they do add Michael Pittman on day 2, even with some size, with T.Y. can still stretch the field. Naheem Hines, I'm not big on Tennessee making the same kind of run as they did last year. I think Indy's going to be more solid everywhere. They can sustain some more injuries than some of these other teams can. I like them. I like the over, but not a ton.
Not a ton. Okay. We'll see
what. Eight I like more,
but 9 is that stuff.
Probably pretty good, and apparently Vegas agrees with you because they're slightly ahead of the Tennessee Titans in the win total, just teasing what we'll get to in a little bit. The Jacksonville Jaguars, though, staying in that division, 5.5, their win total, right? So
there's the extra win. I now forget what they did there. Okay, because they were at 6.5 yesterday, and I thought that was hilarious.
Well, there's the win in that division. So Jimmy, go ahead, 5.5. Where do you have Jacksonville ending up this upcoming season?
I still have the under. I think they're a 4-12 team. The rest of the teams in that division are going to be more competitive than they are. They're not going to have a Knockaway. They're not going to have this. Now, if they pull off that trade scenario that we talked about, and all of a sudden they're dealing with, another wide receiver, another tight end, maybe another quarterback, maybe they can. I mean, they're not going to be 500 by any means, but maybe they're flirting with 6 wins at that point. But I think this is a complete transition year for this team. They're going to really struggle to win more than 1 game in this division. I would take the under here.
Under. I think they're going to have the first pick in the draft next year. I think they want it that way. I think they're loading up with young talent. I mean, this is basically going to remind me a lot of the Rams, Jeff Fisher teams, where you look around, it's like the who's who of the SEC. And you're like, how the hell did they get all these guys? This 14 picks plus maybe picking up an O.J. Howard or whoever it is in this draft, you're not going to want to put a couple years when they rebuild this whole thing with young guys that are cap friendly, not ball on free agency like they did a couple years ago. They made their run, but there's no way I see them getting to 5.5, 6 wins. Take the under and feel good about it.
Yeah, the London Jaguars will be really, really tough to play 2 years down the road. Okay, moving on. Kansas City Chiefs, another high win total. I wasn't surprised to see Baltimore and Kansas City as the 2 top teams here. I think that will not come as any surprise to anybody. 11.5, same as Baltimore's win total. Whew, it's a high one, especially in that division. Jake, your face, for everybody that's listening to the podcast, you gave a good grimace. Like, I really don't want to make this pick, but he's got to make it. Over under here, Jake.
Over, barely.
But you hate it.
I hate it. I don't want to touch it. I'm not. There's no way I'd bet it. I'll pick them to go 12-4. The defense still has some issues. They played really well down the stretch. We've talked about everything that they've done. They've done what they could so far in the offseason. They could have a solid draft. The only reason is Patrick freaking Mahomes, man.
Yeah, I went back.
They proved to me in that offseason. Sorry, Damien, that postseason. It doesn't really matter what you do to them, man. If he gets hot, like their receiving core, I saw some crap the other day as a Bleacher Report or somebody who it was. There's like 4 teams of who's got the best receiver duo, and Godwin's and Evan weren't in there. Tyreek Hill, 4 dudes, pick one from the Chiefs. The receiving core's not that good. Patrick Mahomes is that good.
Yeah.
I'll take the over for that reason.
Yeah, I went back and forth. I'm going to take the slight under. I have them at 11 wins. Again, this is why I don't bet these here, just because I think their division is going to be tough for them. That they might only win, maybe they go 4-2 in the division. instead of anything else. But they're a really good team. I just think once you get these totals this high, there's really no value in it. But I would not be shocked. They're going to win that division. I think they're going to have the best record in the AFC, but it's going to be a tough path. They're going to be battle tested again once they hit the postseason, because that division is going to be really, really difficult for them. And getting that extra week off now that only one team gets it is going to be paramount for them, because they might need it. They might be beat up by the time they get there.
Yeah, that's going to be a wild card heading into this season, just to have that ability, just one team only. No, it's a little bit of a different format than we're used to. All right, the Las Vegas Raiders, to stay in that division, right? They are 7.5, so they're slightly under where Denver is, right? But nobody in this division is less than 7.5 wins, right? So them and the Chargers both at that same level. 7.5 here, Jamie. How are you feeling about the old Las Vegas Raiders, seeing as you are the number one fan of this team?
I had the slight over. I think they're 8-8. We saw a lot of progression from their tackles last year, which was a big reason why there was a lot of those picks were kind of questionable, but they kind of came into their own in year two. I think they're going to, again, with their two picks at 13 and 19, 12 and 19, they're going to be interesting, because you're going to be able to get possibly the number one receiver in this draft class, depending on what the Jets do. And whether that to you is whether it's Ruggs or Judy or Lamb, you're going to add them. I think you add a cornerback at 19. Maybe you trade back and pick up more assets there. You're going to start to add to those pieces. They really started to click. Look, last year down the stretch there, when things kind of really fell apart, Tyrell Williams is playing on an injured foot. They didn't really have another secondary option, because at that point teams were just narrowing in on Darren Waller, which I think is going to be interesting to watch him in year two, now that he is a focal point of coverage. How does he respond? Does he grow, or does he a player that is not a flash in the pan, but is someone that takes a while to adjust to teams focusing on him? But adding another weapon for Derek Carr, Josh Jacobs coming back and not playing with a broken shoulder for several weeks to end the season, adding to that defense and getting healthy on that defense, particularly in the secondary, getting Abram back, who's really, even as young as he is, feels like an emotional leader on that defense, the way he plays. I think they're in a really strong position here. Again, the big negative is going to be they might be the worst team in the division, and that's a kind of a compliment, because the worst team in this division is better than half of a lot of other divisions around the league, but they're going to have trouble winning a lot of their divisional games, and that's going to ultimately keep down their win total. So I have them at 8-8, but this is probably a stay away for me.
All right, guys, moving on to the LA Chargers, staying in that division, right? 7.5 also there. Jake, I'll let you go first here. The team that we all love, right? We are adopted fan club of the old LA Chargers.
Especially with those uniforms.
Yeah, it looks like Jake dropped off, so I'm going to go to Jamie here first, right? So I thought he didn't jump in on the Raiders, so we'll get him here. We'll get you here first, Jamie, on the Chargers. 7.5. We usually love this team, but man, it's tough to buy in this early without seeing them.
It is, but I'm going to do it because that number is too low for me. 7.5 for the Chargers, with all the talent they have on that team, and the fact that they might add. I mean, I think they're going to add Tua to this mix, who may or may not make an impact to them at all this season. But Tyrod Taylor's solid enough. I think they're going to add maybe another running back to their team on day 2 to add with Austin Eckler and Justin Jackson. They've got plenty of weapons at receiver: Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Hunter Henry at tight end. They're just absolutely loaded on defense. They have an excellent secondary. They've got a dynamic pass rushing duo up front. And to me, if they don't go quarterback there, then they're adding another impact player, probably to the defensive side of the ball with that pick. They made a great trade to upgrade their offensive line and a great signing in Bulaga. They are so good at so many areas of the field. I know injuries have been a problem. I know they have a quote unquote unproven quarterback. But to me, I have them now for 10 wins. I think this is a 10-win team. It's going to be the top wild card in the AFC, and 7.5 just seems way too low for me right now.
I agree 100%. Give me the over. I mean, look, you just added your offensive line with Trey Turner and Brian Bulaga. By the way, you could run on them up the middle. You can't do that with Linval Joseph now. You added Chris Harris Jr. in the slot on that defensive side to an already really good secondary. Now you can rush the passer, stop the run. You can run it better. Basically, they're Indianapolis, but better everywhere. So we're talking about Indy being so good at so many places. That's them, but they're better than that everywhere, minus the quarterback position. But I just don't – Tyrod's not going to turn it over. I think they're going to run it. They're going to play action, and that defense is going to be nasty. So, I love the over on this one.
I like Tyrod a lot. I think he's going to be, whether or not they get a quarterback and start him, or if it's a guy like Tua that's going to sit and sit behind Tyrod, which is probably a really good scenario for the Chargers. I think Tyrod's good enough, has enough experience that he's going to, with that roster, he's going to be good enough to get this team to hit that over.
My only question is, how dynamic is Tyrod Taylor? When they get in a shootout, that defense isn't clicking on all cylinders. If they have some injuries again, can Tyrod hang in there with a hot Denver or Patrick Mahomes lighting it up? I don't know about that. I still love the over. I just don't know. That's the only reason I don't like them to win the division, because they're that talented everywhere else.
And we'll see how long. Like if they draft Herbert, for example, I think we all expect, by mid-season he would be starting. Tua, depending on the injury, we don't know. You might have to basically redshirt year for him. If they don't get either one of them, they choose not to draft either one, or let's say somebody trades up with 3 and then Miami takes one at 5, and now you're at 6 going, okay, well, maybe we'll take a Simmons or a Derek Brown or an Okuda at that point, and maybe they trade Desmond King. Then it gets interesting, because do they go back in and say, you know what, Jameis Winston's looking a lot better now than he was a few weeks ago when we were thinking about getting a rookie? Like that possibility is still out there. So we'll see. I think whatever it is, that there's a lot of potential for this quarterback position to improve throughout the season, whether it's a free agent they bring in afterward, or they bring in Herbert and he's their second half of the season guy, a la what happened with Tyrod. Now, it happened a little bit earlier than that, but what happened with Tyrod in Cleveland when Baker Mayfield took over. There's just a lot of scenarios here, but I think all they need right now is a quarterback to not lose them games. They are so good and so talented at every other element of the game and every other spot on the field. They just need to stay healthy and not have a quarterback that's going to throw 25 interceptions. If they can do both those things, they're going to be a playoff team.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point that we talked about a lot right after free agency, but their names haven't been floated and haven't been talked about a lot. Jameis Winston, Cam Newton, Andy Dalton, whether or not they still find themselves on a different roster, I think all those guys are going to be, obviously, Andy Dalton still with Cincinnati, but I think there could be
Andy
movement
Dalton there
here.
would make some sense.
That's what I'm
Andy
saying.
Dalton with them, now you're talking about a dude that could get in a shootout with some people that's a little more dynamic with his arm. I don't think Jameis fits what they want to do. Exactly to Jamie's point, was not turning it over. They like Tyrod. Tyrod's been there. He's won with Anthony Lynn, and I don't think Cam Newton fits what they want to do at all. But Andy Dalton, for the right capital, that one would be.
I'm just saying 7.5 right now. Should probably take it now, because I think there's potential for this team, especially post a draft, whether they get a quarterback or they go get one of these guys. I'm with Jamie. I think this is like a 10-win team, 9 or 10. I think both of you guys, right?
I think
the Miami
10 with Tyrod.
Yeah,
with Andy Dalton, I think they could win the division.
Listen, I hope Andy gets another opportunity, because I feel like I have to fight for Andy Dalton, and everybody got Colin Cowherd calling him a Nissan Altima, and since that happened, there's never been a rebound for Andy Dalton's career. All right, the Miami Dolphins 6, their win total in Vegas. Obviously, a lot of change this offseason. A team that won 5 games last year, right? In spite of everybody saying they're tanking for Tua, which they might not end up drafting. So, Jamie, your overall thoughts here? They got 3 first-round picks. A lot of discussion around the Miami Dolphins. What do you think is the outcome here for the Miami Dolphins in 2020?
I had him down for 6, but I would take the over if I were to make this bet. It was 5.5 when I looked yesterday, but all this draft capital is, I tried to pull up the tweet during the show and I couldn't find the exact one, but it's something like when they've had teams that have had this much capital in the top 100, their record the following year combined is like 70% winning percentage. Like, it is a ridiculous amount. They're going to add so much talent to this team. Probably, a quarterback, add to the line. Maybe they're going to add another running back right away. I mean, they're going to add so much talent to this team. They're an exciting team to play. I think, again, I would lean to the over on this one, because I think there's a much better chance this team adds to that win total. Question is how many games you think they win in that division with all these things. I think a lot of those teams, I don't think there's a huge difference between those 4 teams, to be perfectly honest with you. Pretty much the 3 teams at the top, it's tough to factor in the Belichick factor of how much they're going to do in New England. But I think those teams are all going to be within a few games of each other, and they're all going to play each other tightly. But the amount of talent on this team is going to be off the charts, where this is a team that probably not going to make a jump this year, but the jump that they could make 2-3 years from now could be massive. Like, we could be looking at the next multi-year divisional winner back-to-back-to-back type of a thing down the road.
I learned a hell of a lot from Brian Flores that his guys will play their asses off for him, because last year's team sucked talent-wise, and this one's going to be loaded, as Jamie said. I think they're flirting with it, but I'll take the over as well. Every game in this division is winnable. I think Buffalo is the class of it. Like I said, I think they win the division ultimately, but there's no reason that Miami can't go to Buffalo and win, or vice versa, go to the Jets, go to New England. You're not going to want
went to New England last year and beat that team
with nobody. You're damn sure not going to want to play them. I mean, They played so hard last year, and now you're turning, and that was with, literally go position by position. What they had, that was awful. Fitz magic with these young dudes, it's going to be a fun ride. I mean, you're not going to want to play them. I like the over on this one.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun team to watch. I'm obviously a lot of intrigue about who's going to be the starting quarterback, who's going to be, whether or not they decide to go with one of the young guys. I think the Miami Dolphins fan base is going to be one of the more entertaining fan bases to watch on Thursday night as we go through all of this. All right, staying in that division, the next two teams, first and foremost, the New England Patriots sit at the top of this division with 9 wins in Vegas. Jamie, I couldn't even get the total out before Jamie was doing the big old arrow down, right? And Jake's pointing to Jamie and I'm pointing down because I'm looking at this and I'm going, how in the hell do you look at this currently constructed roster with Jared Stidham as a starting quarterback and go, you know what? This team is going to win more games than the Buffalo Bills. Maybe in 2 weeks we find out it's a different scenario. But I cannot imagine looking at this right now as it stands, both teams, and thinking that team would beat Buffalo. I cannot imagine that and win more games. So Jake, Jamie, we both, all three of us made arrow signs pointing down. So I think I know where we're all headed here. But Jamie, I'll let you go first with some analysis, your thoughts on New England and their win total.
Look, I know they're a heavy public team, so their number's always going to be inflated because the books are trying to leverage and make sure they don't get caught with a lot of liability on one side or the other. But I have them down as a 6-win team this year. I have down 6-10. I think the loss of Tom Brady has made people forget of all the pieces they lost on defense this offseason, as they basically split their ways between their last two quote-unquote defensive coordinators, defensive assistants, in Brian Flores in Miami and Matt Patricia in Detroit. They lost a lot of pieces on that side of the ball. They obviously lost Tom Brady, which is a tremendous loss. They are weapons deficient on offense right now. They don't have a trustworthy tight end. I like Julian Edelman, but let's see how he does without the volume that Brady was providing him. N'Keal Harry needs to show massive steps forward to be a reliable starter next year. They don't really have any other pieces there. Weapons were a problem for them last year. Sony Michel did not play well more often than not last season. We'll see if he bounces back and has a better year this year. Maybe Damian Harris plays a little bit more. I think at this point, James White is I wouldn't say a non-factor, but a much lesser factor than he was when Tom Brady was there. They still have a lot of holes on defense. The line was a problem last year. The line's a problem again. They lost Scarnecchia coaching them, as we talked about earlier in the offseason. There's really not much to like about this team other than their head coach right now. And I think that's only going to take them so far. I think this is a 6-10 team, and I feel very confident taking the under here.
I agree. I mean, the only thing I can add to that is I'll give you 2 games for Belichick. For the Belichick factor, I'll give you 2 extra wins, which puts you at 8-8 and still take the under. So I agree with you. I like them at 6-10. I'll give you the 2 for Belichick being better than everybody else. But that won't take you too far. I will say Jared Stidham could freaking sling it, dude. I mean, he was a highly recruited kid, highly recruited at junior college, went to Auburn and played an offense that did not fit what he does. He can flat throw the freaking football. So, don't be surprised if he comes out and looks better than a lot of people when it's like Jared Stidham. I get that. I'm going to warn you a little bit. I mean, Bill's not going to put out somebody that sucks. Brian Hoyer knows this offense, knows this place. So if Stidham starts over him, the talent's there. He can flat sling it, but he doesn't have any weapons. To your point, none.
Yeah, that's the bigger. That's the bigger part here. It's less. Yes, it's a huge downgrade anytime you go from the greatest quarterback to insert anybody else, but it's the whole roster. We talked about this roster last year. The roster is just not good. It's just not very good. For the same way we're critical of Seattle, look at this team. I mean, go position by position. They're not very good. And the mismanagement or whatever you want to call it from Belichick that's been glorified for a long time might actually finally catch up with him from moving on from tons and tons of stars that they have drafted over the years. So we will see, but 9 seems way too high.
Here's what I'm waiting for, because I'm in full tinfoil hat mode now. Just on things I can't wait for. Him to work out a deal with Patricia for 3 to take Tua. And then Patricia ends up getting fired because the Lions suck, and he goes back to New England. And so you get to see that them try to come back together and see if they can make it work in a couple years, building through Tua.
Jake's face. Oh,
waiting
man,
for it.
So
Waiting for it.
I'm not saying. I'm just saying. It makes a lot of sense, and she's doing the shit out of everybody.
I'm here for all the tinfoil hat moments because we've all endured 20 years of this with Bill.
That in the air.
It's out there now. Send me the hate mail if it happens on Thursday.
Yeah, you know who to blame if it ends up happening. All right, in that division, the New York Jets, 7 is their win total. Jake, I'll go to you first here. Do you have the Jets going 8-8, or do you have them pushing on this one or going under?
I got them right there. I like the way they finished. They added some pieces. They got to stay healthy. They need to have a good draft. Right now, I'd say push, but I'd like to take the over and get to 8-8, but they got to have a good draft. They got to have a good draft. They got to stay healthy. But I like the way they finished. I think that division, as we've just talked about, is so close between 6-10, 10-6. Everybody's kind of right there. It's going to be tough. I think they can finish 8-8, but I don't like it.
Yeah, I have them push. I have them pushing right at 7. Again, I like them, but the thing is, it's going to be, for them, it's going to be a tough division just because there is no truly elite team in this division. I think they're going to be very competitive in all those games, but they can lose to any of their divisional rivals. They can beat any of them in any building. I like what they're building there, but I need to kind of see, does Le'Veon Bell take another step forward this year, or is this what we get from him outside of this Pittsburgh offense? Does Sam Darnold stay healthy? I know last year was more illness than injury, but he hasn't played 16 games or even 14 games in his NFL career yet. Where does he go there? I still think they need more weapons. I like the Perriman signing, but that's just a 1-year deal. I like Crowder in the middle, but I still think you need another guy there, and I don't think that's going to be Quincy Enunwa. Do they draft a player there? Do they draft a tackle? They still have needs on the offensive line where they brought in some guys, but they brought in just some guys. So it's I just still think this team played hard last season. They have some talent, but let's say they move on from Adams. Are they going to get players that are going to help them this year? I don't think so. You might get capital.
I
hope not.
They'd be flipping minds to move on from one of the best safeties in football.
I agree.
Young safety in football, period.
And so just to me, just like, they're a 7-win team. I think they're going to be in a lot of these games, but to me, like, I think they finished with a better record than Miami, but they're not going to be as pleasing to watch.
Good point.
Okay. I think that's well, we've already watched this Brian Flores team, and they were a 5-win team last year, and they were fun to watch, right? So I think it's safe to say that Miami would be more fun, and New York might be more talented or better this season. All right, Pittsburgh Steelers. We talked a lot about this division up at the top. Obviously, we went through all their teams. Big Ben coming back, a lot of this team coming back. They've riddled with injuries and still almost crawled and just got themselves into a postseason. Didn't make it there, but their win total this year is 9 heading in. So a little bit ahead of the Cleveland Browns and just obviously underneath Baltimore, the favorite in that division. Jake, I'll go to you first here. You know this place well. You know Ben well. He says he is in a better place than he's been in a long time, right? Do you believe him and do you buy into that? And you're shaking your head, so I'll just let you go.
Yes. You have the best quarterback in the division. Period. I don't care Lamar Jackson's on the cover of Madden. I don't care how dynamic and explosive he is. You have a 2-time winning Super Bowl champion, been to 3, Hall of Fame quarterback, who's now healthier than he's been in like 5 years. This elbow has been bothering him for a long time. He's also motivated to finish his career. He'd love to have the chip stacked against him. And I'm telling you right now, you do not want to bet this dude and flipping quarters in a cup, playing golf, football, whatever it is, because he's going to freaking beat you. I don't care who you are. He is – nothing he does at this point surprises me or amazes me. It's just Ben being Ben. And I would not bet against this team. With having Ben back healthy and that defense the way that it is, with this draft, you could solidify a couple things. They added more pieces to their offensive line. They have weapons already. They add some more. I like the over. I think if I had to pick right now, I'd pick them to win the division.
I like it. Jamie?
So I have them over as well. I have them for 10 wins. So I think it's them and Baltimore are going to be, obviously it's not breaking any news. Them and Baltimore are going to be the class of this division. And one of those two, they're going to be probably within a game of each other in either direction. I think people have forgotten how good this Steelers team is. And I think they've forgotten how to put together what that Steelers offense was 2 years ago with what that Steelers defense is now and was last season, because they haven't been able to put those two pieces together because they haven't seen them on the same field at the same time. They won 8 games with like a 47 overall create a Madden player quarterback last year. Okay. I mean, I cannot describe to you how bad their quarterback play was. If you didn't go back and watch it and can't realize how bad the quarterback play they got from Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges. I mean, it was all cool and all because Duck Hodges and Quacking and Nick, they were terrible. This was a terrible football team to watch on offense. And their defense got a lot better. And it got attention, but I don't think people have kind of melded together. What's going to happen when you put Roethlisberger healthy, Juju healthy, James Conner healthy, back on the field at the same time with 2 other receivers that progressed a lot late in the season, and James Washington and Deontay Johnson? Adding to that tight end position and adding a big red zone threat in Eric Ebron. I look at this team and I go, I have them for 10, but I could see it being higher. They're in that upper class to me in the AFC. I don't have them over Kansas City, but I think they're like the last team at the top level of the AFC, where I think they're absolutely a Super Bowl contender as currently constructed. And if Ben Roethlisberger plays 16 games, if you could tell me that right now, like if you guaranteed me in a crystal ball, they win this division. I was so impressed with what they were able to do last season. And that defense is really, really good and dynamic and game breaking. And I think now that we're going to see that with a healthy Steelers offense, watch out. Because this to me is the team that is kind of, they're not flying super under the radar because they're the Steelers, but they're flying under the radar compared to where they've been in previous years. And this is a better team than they were a couple years ago.
Yeah,
this is the first time since 2010 the offense and the defense will match. That's the last time they went to the Super Bowl. The offense was great after that. The defense got deconstructed. It's also the first time in a few years since Mike Tomlin really kind of took over that defense, with Keith Butler still, but Keith being a Dick LeBeau's disciple and that true 3-4 zone blitz scheme. They've gone away from that. They're much more multiple than they used to be. They play a lot more zone than they used to, and they're moving into more of what Mike wants to do on defense, but they didn't have the pieces until last year. But you bring Ben back to that. Nobody is getting the upgrade at the quarterback position more than the Steelers, from what they did a year ago to what they have now, bringing the big man back. If they were in a shootout on a neutral field, either Pittsburgh or Kansas City, if they're in a shootout with the Chiefs, they can hang because their defense is better than Kansas City's. Their defense is better than most people they're going to play. Like you put Ben on the Chargers, I'm picking them.
Good night.
But
yeah.
The Steelers, that defense is almost as good as the Chargers. And they have the same kind of weapons. Like if they stay healthy, that offensive line's still really good. I don't know, man. Like I can see them making a serious run.
Yeah, that's a really good football team. And we've talked about Ben coming back and feeling revitalized, which if that is the case, and obviously you know him well, Jake, that could be a scary team. And they are, although they're not, like Jamie said, they're not flying totally under the radar. They're still not in that conversation we're used to them being in heading into this offseason. And that's because Ben got hurt and this team was injured and there were things that have happened. But this was a team last year that showed me a lot where they just had nothing at the end. And it was scraping by and still almost getting themselves into the postseason. I feel like I'm going to talk myself into this team winning the division by the time we preview these teams.
By the way, this isn't Ben learning a new offense or changing team. This is Randy Fickner. This is the same offense he was running when my dad was there. Like this, nothing's changed. He knows everything about this. It's just getting healthy. Like I said, that elbow bothered him for a long time, and it finally snapped. I mean, if he's 90% of his old self with that competitive nature, with the way that they play, and you add a couple pieces in this draft, man, I think it's all about health. I think they're going to meld together as a team. The locker room is going to be solid. You know that fan base. That's another one. They get hot. They get on a roll. That's one of those that just kind of just keeps going. Yeah,
and we've talked about it. Like Ben getting that year off, like that's a dude that plays every game and takes shots and just, I mean, I can only imagine how much better he feels right now and will feel heading into this training camp than he probably has in 15 years. I mean, he's a tough dude, and this has been probably a good revitalization, or if you want to try and think of a positive, because he's a guy that takes a lot of hits for sure.
I think it's worth noting too, Paige, before we jump off this. Like, you take a guy like that we've heard the contemplation of retirement because the game probably gets stagnant after 15 years and multiple Super Bowls and all that kind of stuff, but you have it taken from you. Not you walking away. The game is taken from you. And then you sit back and watch it for a year and go, man, I'm not done. I'm not done with this. I want to prove that I can come back. It gives him something else to be motivated for that he probably hasn't been in a long time in the same way. I don't think you can discount those kind of things either. I mean, you take a motivated chip on his shoulder, Ben, who would love nothing more than to get in a shootout with Patrick Mahomes or anybody. That's him. I just think you can't discount that either. I look for big things from them this year.
Yeah, I hope that's what we get. I hope we get Steelers and Chiefs because, man, that would be fun if that's what we're looking at the AFC Championship game here down the road. Just thinking about football is exciting in general at this point. It's just fun to play it out in my head that's a scenario that could happen. All right, last team here in the AFC, the Tennessee Titans, a team that went to the AFC Championship game last year, overachieved for most people's estimations. A team that's running it back, right? They're bringing back their guys, but they did lose some key pieces on this offense. And as we talked about in their post-free agency, this is a team that probably got worse, right? And they're running it back very similarly to what they had last year. And there's a couple of teams in their division maybe are not as good, but there's also, you look at an Indianapolis who got better, right? So, Jamie, what are your thoughts here on the Tennessee Titans and their win total right now?
What was their total again on this one? Because they've moved a bit.
8.5. Yeah, 8.5.
Yeah, I mean, heavily juiced on the over. This is a stay away from me. I have them at 9-7. I still think they have enough pieces. They play solid. But as Jacobs pointed out, that defense hasn't played as well as they did a couple years ago. They still tend to get the job done more often than not, but they can be vulnerable against high offensive teams. Assuming that Derrick Henry is also going to come back in camp and be his old self, and it's not going to be a huge problem playing on this franchise tag, or if they work out long-term or something there. Again, the progression this year is going to be they have an extra 6 games with Ryan Tannehill. I don't expect him to play as well as he did in that stretch, but having the extra games, I think, gets them right kind of close to where they were last year. I think they're a team that's in wild card contention. I think they'll have a winning record. Mike Vrabel is almost kind of like the AFC Ron Rivera the last few years, where there's a higher floor than even what the talent level is on paper. I would be interested to see what they do in the draft. I think they're a prime trade back candidate, but they're also in a prime spot if a guy is falling, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. They don't have a glaring need to take somebody at where are they at 29, where they are now, right in front of the Packers, where I thought they were going to take a right tackle for sure. But now it doesn't look like they're going to need to do that. So it kind of opens up where they're going to go with that pick. I'd like to see them add another wide receiver on day 2 at some point, because I think this is going to be Corey Davis's last year in Tennessee. I think A.J. Brown's going to be your number 1, but I think you need somebody else there long term. So I'm interested to see how this thing plays out during the draft. But they're going to be a solid team, but I don't think we're seeing this team winning multiple playoff games again this year.
No, I agree. I like them. I like Vrabel, man. Vrabel has really impressed me the last couple of years. 2 years ago, it made no sense on paper. They just kept winning games. Last year, they got hot. They were that team that you didn't want to play because they figured out what they want to do, and they did it really well. I think they're going to run it well. I think Tannehill will play well. I like Jonnu Smith. Well, I love my boy from Starkville High, AJ. I think Corey Davis could still be – he was a number 3 overall pick. He could still be a guy. I agree with you. They probably need to add somebody because they're probably going to lose him. This defense was 21st ranked defense total last year. They got a lot of credit that was probably undeserved. And Logan Ryan got hurt, and then they weren't as good. Now, he's still a free agent. He hasn't re-signed there. He hasn't been anywhere else. He's a good piece that they're going to miss as well. Yeah. The Jarrell Casey trade, I think they need defensive line help. So I could see that. I think I mocked them with Blacklock for TCU.
As did I.
I could see them moving up, though. As, say, Kinlaw drops to 18, 19. I can see them trying to move up and maybe snatch him and get a pass-rushing defensive tackle. But they don't need a lot. But I still have them. I like the over as well to get to finish my point. But I'd have them just a tick under Indianapolis.
Yeah, we talk about coaching staffs. I like the analogy you made, Jamie, the Ron Rivera of the AFC, right? Because I spent time with both of them at the combine. They were both a part of the women's symposium. And as much as I was in it, mind you, it was John Lynch, right? And those two. And all three of them were people that everybody was interested in. But let me tell you, Mike Vrabel stole the show. It was like nobody was interested to hear from anybody other than Vrabel. And I was around him. It seemed like we kept bumping into each other a bunch after that. Something about him. He's just got a good feel about him. I've talked to Kevin Byard, who I know really well. He has a really good command of that locker room. And I think the players really like playing for him. And there's just something to that. It seems like he's that kind of a guy that gets a little bit extra from his players, maybe than some other coaches do, probably in the same way that Ron does. I don't know what that equates to this season. I know the last two seasons, they've been better. They've ended up better than what we predicted, right? So we'll see if that continues this season. Parting thoughts, guys. We got ourselves all the way to the end of the AFC. And to tease tomorrow's show, we are going to do prop bets ahead of the NFL draft, which kicks off on Thursday. Very excited, right, guys? Continuing our draft week coverage. Jamie, your parting thoughts here on today's podcast.
A lot more. I still think the class of the NFL, in terms of the tippy top team, still resides in the AFC. I'm really intrigued to see where some of these top teams land. Like obviously Kansas City's path to 11 or 12 wins, despite their tough division, seems easier than Baltimore's. Baltimore's got a lot of tough division as well. And there's a lot of questions that still need to be asked because Lamar Jackson answered a lot of questions last year, but created some new ones, particularly with the way that this season ended. So the way the last two seasons have ended, those questions still haven't been fully answered. But the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think, can be in heavy contention. And I think it's, as we talked about a lot, there's going to be something different about what I think is going to be a non-playoff New England Patriots team. And them not being a team we're talking about getting a bye or being the number one team in the AFC or even winning the division, and what that means for the other top teams, that you're now not going into Foxborough. We're not starting these 425 Sunday playoff games going into Foxborough as the sun's already down and all this other stuff that we've been used to seeing in the postseason. I think it's going to have a ripple effect on a lot of these teams because they're going to be a lot. That coupled with the extra wild card team is going to make a lot of teams in the AFC feel like they're in contention late in the season. Like the Miamis of the world, the Jets of the world, they're going to look at this and say, I'm trying to look at some of the other teams that we have down here. You know, the Raiders, I think that, you know, there are going to be a lot of these teams that are going to be hanging around that second, third wild card spot now late in the season, where it's going to make for some really, really exciting AFC games down the stretch.
Yeah, I agree, Jamie. The top is good. I had 3 or 4 teams could be that top. There's a bunch of those 8 and 8, 9 and 7 teams that are going to be fighting for that wild card and then that extra wild card. The AFC is good, man. There's only a couple teams that aren't very good. Everybody else could be flirting with 500. I mean, they're not going to be, but everybody could be. It's a lot of parity in the AFC, man. It's tough.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. As I said earlier, my parting thoughts is it's just fun to play hypotheticals about live sports. That's my parting thoughts. It's just fun to think about scenarios for football season kicking off, and hopefully everything just continues to get better so that way we can get football season on time. Be sure to check out MyBookie's latest odds. That's what we use today, MyBookie.ag, to see all of these odds and the prop bets that we're going to talk about tomorrow. And lastly, how can everybody follow you guys on social media? Jamie, you first.
You follow me at Jamie Eisner on Twitter.
Jake
B. Arians on Twitter.
You guys can follow me at @the_sports page with an I on both Twitter and Instagram. You can follow the Draft Network at the Draft Network on Twitter.